We are live, a couple minutes late. I have removed the Zoom meeting from this thing so that I could track a little bit more. So hopefully, as we figure this thing out each week, I can understand how to leverage this and see more of your comments and such. We shall see. We will see if that actually happens or not. So if you're out here watching, I would love it if you would go ahead and pop something in there, pop a comment in there. I'll try to keep an eye on that thing and see. But today, what I want to talk about a little bit is actually from a talk that I just recently gave, and it's really about the leader's most important word. And this came out of a conversation about how do we engage people? How do we engage those folks who are either in our workforce or our staff or our clients or the community? How do we actually engage people? So I'm just going to give you a walkthrough of the outline from today. Hey Liz, thanks for jumping on here. I appreciate you putting a comment out there. Others feel free to do the same. But what I want to do is talk about just the high level view of this thing and then get to what is that most important word. Figure 10-15 minutes or so. But if you have comments, conversations, questions, put those in the chat. But basically, here's some things that we already know as leaders. We know that the wrong situation crushes our engagement. You know this, right? When you are in the wrong situation, for me, it was a shared office environment at my last corporate job. But when you know you're in the wrong environment, whether that's the wrong people, the wrong place, the wrong job, that it crushes our engagement. We no longer want to engage. We're no longer willing to engage the way that we want. And we also know that the right situation builds our engagement, right? When you're in the right situation, when you're surrounded by the right people, when you're doing the right kind of work, when you're just in a good place, you are more engaged, right? You are more active in conversations. You're more willing to go to meetings. You're just overall more happy. You're more engaged in life and in your job. So the wrong situation crushes us. The right situation builds our engagement. We also know that engagement is the holy grail of organizational growth, right? Everybody wants deeper engagement. Entrepreneur.com said that engaged employees create a 10% higher customer rating, 20% more sales. Gallup said that a highly engaged workforce creates a 41% reduction in absenteeism, 17% higher productivity, 21% higher profitability. It's the holy grail, right? And so businesses spend tons of money trying to create deeper levels of engagement. But we also know that engagement is not a natural outcome of business. When people are focused on business, engagement is just sort of an add-on sort of thing. They're focusing on driving sales, on developing products, on improving operations, managing finance, business, 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 without a concerted effort about engagement. It just becomes a byproduct and it usually wanes. And so engagement ends up being this add-on sort of thing. And companies are spending millions of dollars trying to figure out how to engage employees. They're training managers, they're introducing programs, they're doing survey development of employee engagement indexes, they're creating analytics programs, they're hiring consultants. And as of today, there are 84,300 jobs on Indeed.com specifically around engagement. All right, this is what people are after. They're spending millions of dollars trying to get engagement, but it's not a natural outcome of business. But what we do know is that engagement is a natural outcome of building community. When you are focused on trying to build a community, whether that's your friendship circle, whether that's a hobby, whether that's a nonprofit, whether it's an actual physical geographic community, engagement becomes central. It's not an add-on because building a community starts with the people involved. It doesn't start with what can be sold or who will buy it or how do we automate it. It's a natural result of a we community building mentality. And I think about this specifically. I'll come back to that. It's another example, and I could spend an hour talking about this. But just know that engagement is a natural outcome of community building, and we also know that people naturally flow toward community. People want to belong. You see, engagement is not a, is a symptom of vibrant community, but the real draw is belonging, right? When people are engaged, that's just a symptom. It's a symptom of belonging. And so when there's an opportunity to belong, when community creates that opportunity to belong, people are naturally drawn to that. So they're naturally drawn to belonging, which naturally happens in community, which creates engagement. Radha Agrawal, who is the author of Belong, said that belonging is the opposite of loneliness. It's a feeling of home. It's a feeling of I can exhale here and be fully myself with no judgment, with no insecurity. Belonging is about shared values and responsibility and the desire to participate in making your community better. People have a clear need to identify with a group and be accepted as a vital member of that community. People want to belong, right? We're all longing to belong. That's even why I think sports stadiums get filled eventually after COVID, get filled with people who are cheering and wearing the same colors because they want to belong. We want to belong to something bigger. Forbes magazine wrote that belonging is a fundamental part of being human. It was super interesting. There's an MIT study done that found that we crave interactions in the same region of our brains where we crave food. And another study showed that we experience social exclusion in the same region of our brain where we experience physical pain. This is a physiological piece of this, where we really want and need to belong. And that's why I think COVID is so hard on so many of us. It's so hard to feel that sense of community. It's so hard to feel that sense of belonging when we can't be with each other. We want to belong. We want to look for those communities that give that to us. And this is true of your clients and of your vendors and of your partners and of your staff. And it's also true of your potential clients and vendors and partners and staff. People are searching for places where they can belong. They search out communities, right? And so whether that's with people that you are currently connected with or it's people that potentially want to connect with you, keep that in mind that they want to belong. And so this is leading us to the home stretch here. The most successful leaders build engagement by building effective, vibrant communities where people can belong. And I read a lot about this. You can look it up yourself. Places like Apple and Google and Harley Davidson with their Harley's Owners Group and Nordstrom, they do this amazing piece of helping their clients feel like they belong to something bigger, because that belonging creates community, which creates engagement, which creates customer loyalty, which creates deeper share of wallet, which creates promotional opportunities, all of that stuff. The best leaders create a sense of belonging, create a sense of vibrant community. And this is what I've been doing for 30 years, is building community. And this is how things grow. This is how nonprofits are built. It's how corporate Fortune 500 divisions are built. They're built through community, effective, vibrant community. You do need the other parts. You need vision, you need strategy, you need the right people around you. You need ownership, authenticity, collaboration, intentionality, all of these things, but these are driving toward community, driving toward a sense of belonging. And so it brings me to the key point I wanted to make in this thing, which the most important trait for a community builder, a community building leader, is the collective we mindset. You cannot build an effective community without having the collective we mindset. And I want to share one example. This will get a little bit longer, but when I was in Rwanda, and yeah, I was in Rwanda, you guys know I talk about this a lot. One thing stood out around this, which was we had the opportunity to be involved in several clean water projects, helping water sources open and that sort of thing. And we were at one project, I believe it was 2011. Those of you who are on the trip will correct me. But we had actually just been around when they just opened up a new water source, a natural spring where they helped this community have access to clean water. So prior to this, those kids on the top of the hill, top of the mountain, they were walking 2-3 hours each way to get dirty water. Now it sounds cliche, but I was there. This is what happens. I've walked this with these people. Okay, and so 80% of the kids weren't in school. The water they were getting was stagnant, and so it was unhealthy. And so this water source opened, and it was now a 20-minute walk down to get clean water and a 20-minute walk back up the side of the mountain. And now most of us will be like, what a disaster, 40-minute round trip walking to get water. It was a miracle for them to have this opened up. And so we were talking to them after through the translator and saying, what else do you need? Okay, you now have access to clean water, you're healthier, your kids can be in school, all of these great things. What else do you need? And these are people who were maybe eating once or twice a week, and a lot of that was just eating cassava, which is like potatoes. They didn't have good nutrition. AIDS was still running rampant. They didn't have good educational programs. So many things that they were lacking. And what they told us is that we need the people on the other side of the mountain to also get access to clean water. That was the powerful collective we mindset that they had. They did not want anything further for themselves. They didn't want access to greater nutrition, better soil erosion techniques, all of this stuff, better medical care. They weren't looking for that until the people on the other side of the mountain had access to clean water. And this wasn't like some government leader, it wasn't some program leader. I always tried to talk to just the average people, right? Just the residents. This is what they were saying. They were saying that they needed people on the other side of the mountain. That's the collective we mentality that I'm talking about. And I'm telling you that all of the great leaders are able to summon this up. Maybe not to that degree, but they're able to sum up this collective we, where we are all in this thing together. It's not about me. And so ultimately, my point for you is the most important word in a successful leader's vocabulary is we rather than I. And I was so curious about this, I started really digging into this thing, and I found a lot of studies, and I actually did some of my own studies where I took speeches of famous people, some that were considered really good leaders, some that were considered very selfish leaders, and did a word cloud on how many times these words appeared as a percentage of total or relative we versus I, and it was astounding. And so it's not necessarily the tail wagging the dog, it's what's inside of us that comes out. But the great leaders figure out a way to build that collective mindset, the collective we mindset, and start articulating things in that way. But I want to give you a couple of examples of this. Professor Deborah Tannen said, we are always in the process of judging others in terms of their abilities and their intentions toward us. And we base those judgments in large part on the way people talk. In other words, what we say impacts people's perceptions of us. And I know this is true. When I'm around a leader who's constantly saying, I did this and I did this and I did this, and when it was clearly a team effort, that drives me crazy. And I start judging that leader, and it lessens my engagement. But when I'm around a leader who's saying, here's what we did, here's what we're going to do, even if I didn't have a lot to do with it, if they included me in the sense of belonging and importance, I was connected with them. And so I think what Deborah said is so true. We're judging people on their intentions toward us. And the I-we distinction is incorporated in our mind as a judgment on how they perceive us. John Adair observed the most useful word in the leader's vocabulary is we. There's a study done around presidential elections and predictions. This was actually a global study looking at who's going to be elected president. And I won't get into all the detail, but definitely a very clear, statistically significant correlation between those who used we and us in their overtures to potential followers and how predictive that is of the difference between victory and defeat. So very clear study. David Burkus wrote an article for the Harvard Business Review called, If You Want to Be the Boss, Say We, Not I. And a lot of great stuff here, but 5 separate studies were done about language in different contexts, and they all found basically the exact same thing, that individuals of lower status overwhelmingly tended to use first-person singular pronouns, such as I, compared to individuals with higher status. And the reciprocal is true. In other words, the leaders use the word we. Now, is that once they became leaders, they used the word we, or is it because they used the word we, they became leaders, right? Correlation is not necessarily causation, but there's a very clear correlation between people of higher standing and the use of the word we versus people of lower standing and use of the word I. The implication from this Harvard Business Review article is that higher status individuals demonstrate an others orientation significantly more than lower status individuals. And likewise, lower status individuals appear more self-oriented. If you want to be a leader, if you want to be a successful leader, figure out how to use the word we more. And I would encourage you, don't just train yourself to use the word we, actually try to adopt a collective we orientation, a collective we posture toward your team, toward your movement, toward whatever it is that you're doing. Think about it in terms of we. If you want to build an effective community, if you want people to feel like they belong, then they'll engage more, they'll promote you more, they'll be more loyal, they'll give more to the cause. So get that collective we mentality. So in closing, and again, for those of you just joining, this is actually a summary of a long talk I did. I'm giving you a fire hose version of it, but I'm encouraging you to develop a collective we mindset. But in closing, the four things I really want you to take away from this thing and be encouraged by is, first of all, develop a community mindset where the collective we is greater than the individual I. You've got to get it straight up here. You've got to get it straight in your mind that this is not about just you. If it's just about you, you're going to be limited in how far you go. If you develop that this is about us, if this is about the we, you're going to be able to grow farther. So get that mindset about the collective we. Secondly, make decisions about your business or your nonprofit or your hobby group, whatever it is. Make those decisions looking through the lens of community. As you're deciding on a strategy or an event or a compensation structure or whatever it might be, try to look through the lens of community building. What decision is going to help build the greater community? Because that is what's going to engage people. That's what's going to help them feel like they belong. That's going to create greater levels of productivity. All of these things, if you can create that community mindset and look through the lens of community when you're making decisions. The third thing is intentionally create opportunities for those involved to feel a sense of belonging. Okay, belonging doesn't just happen. Community doesn't just happen. You need to be intentional. So ask yourself, what am I doing to help people feel like they're part of a community? To help them feel like they're an important part, to help them feel like they belong, to help them feel like they're part of something bigger than just themselves. All right, and this is going to be authentic because you have the community mindset. This isn't a game. But you do have to be intentional because it's easy to get lost in our work to say, what am I doing today to help people feel like they belong to this movement, to something that we have going that's bigger than themselves? And then fourth, if all else fails, if you can't develop the community mindset, if this thing isn't natural, just start saying we more often. People feel good about that. People have a visceral reaction to it. As Professor Deborah Tannen said, we are judging people based on their words. And if we're using the word we more often and they know that they're part of that collective we, they're going to start feeling better about their relationship with us. They're going to become more loyal to us. They're going to get to that know, like, trust area much quicker. And it's going to help us grow our business and achieve our vision for the world and for our business, for our nonprofits and everything that. So today was, more of a lesson, I guess, more of a summary of a talk, but I hope you hear my heart on this thing. The heart is about building vibrant community. The heart is about getting a collective we mindset and trying to make societal improvements. And if you're ultimately trying to grow your business or nonprofit, get it. Start thinking as a we. Start thinking as a community builder. Start using the word we more often. So that is the message for today. I'm not sure if I see comments and that sort of thing. If there are comments or are questions, throw them out there. I'll give it a minute or two here. It's very possible I'm not seeing them in the right place. But otherwise, I appreciate you guys jumping on here. I know most of you are going to be watching this later, so feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to shoot me a direct message on Facebook. If you have any comments or questions, you want to wrestle with this a little bit, or even if you have stories of success on this, let me know that. I love to hear these stories about people who are doing community well, who are engaging people, who have the collective we mindset. So feel free to shoot me a note on that. Otherwise, I'll let you go. I did shift the time, so we did this at noon Central on Thursday. That's kind of the plan. If you have ideas on things you want me to chat about, I'd love to eventually build this so it's a much more interactive dialogue. But feel free to reach out with any comments, questions, or whatever, and we will catch you guys next week. Take care. Bye-bye.